somewhere in the ancient forests of North America, and in the hedgerows of England, and in the cliffs above the Mediterranean, and in the scrublands of every continent where birds have nested for 50 million years, something is happening this morning. It has been happening every spring for longer than our species has existed, longer than our language has had words for it, longer than our philosophy has had questions large enough to contain it. 2 eggs, in a nest no larger than a human fist, lined with moss and spider silk, and the careful work of 2 parents who have been preparing for this moment for weeks. By the time this story ends, only one of them will remain. This video is not about cruelty. It is not about horror. It is not even, ultimately, about death. It is about something far more difficult to sit with. It is about design. Scientists call it Siblicide, the deliberate killing or the engineered death of one sibling by another, within the nest, within the first days of life, before the victim has ever seen beyond the walls of the place where it was born. It sounds like an aberration, a malfunction, something that should not exist in a world we want to believe tends toward life. It is not an aberration. Siblicide has been documented in over 30 species of birds: eagles, herons, egrets, boobies, pelicans, owls, cranes. It appears across every continent, in every climate, in every ecosystem where birds have nested long enough to develop strategies for survival. It is not rare. It is not unusual. In some species, it is guaranteed. In the great egret, the first chick to hatch will attack its younger sibling within hours of the second egg opening. Not because it is hungry, not because resources are already scarce, simply because it hatched first. The hierarchy of a nest is established before both chicks have drawn their first full breath. But before we go further, we need to ask the question that this behavior immediately raises. Why? Why would nature, which we tend to imagine as economical, as purposeful, as optimizing for life, design a system that kills one of its own creations before it has lived? The answer is more unsettling than the behavior itself. The second egg, the one that will almost certainly die, was never meant to hatch. Not in the sense that it was unwanted, in the sense that it was created for a specific purpose that has nothing to do with becoming a bird. Ornithologists have a term for it: the insurance egg. It exists as biological backup, in case the first egg is damaged, fails to develop, or is lost to predation before it hatches. In a good year, when the first chick hatches healthy and strong, the second egg's purpose is fulfilled simply by existing, by being there as contingency. And then, having served its purpose, it hatches anyway, because it is a living egg and living things hatch. And the chick inside does not know it was never supposed to need the world. What happens next is not anger. It is not malice. It is not even competition in the way we understand the word. It is older than those concepts. The first chick begins to position itself between the second chick and the parents, between the second chick and the food, between the second chick and warmth, between the second chick and everything it needs to survive. Sometimes the attack is direct. The first chick pecks, bites, pushes the smaller sibling to the edge of the nest. In some documented cases, pushes it over. But in many species, the killing is slower, more passive, more efficient. The second chick simply does not get enough. It falls behind. It weakens. And eventually, often within days, it stops competing entirely. The parents watch this happen. They do not intervene. They have never intervened. In 50 million years of this behavior, the parents have never once stepped between their children. Not because they are indifferent, because their instincts, honed across geological time, tell them that this is how it is supposed to go. We have a tendency, those of us who love nature, who fill feeders, who watch birds with something approaching reverence, to divide the natural world into what is beautiful and what is brutal, to hold the beauty and look away from the brutal. Siblicide does not allow that division, because Siblicide is both beautiful and brutal simultaneously. It is the most efficient solution nature found to a genuine problem. And the problem it solves is one that cuts to the heart of what life is. Resources are finite. In a world a great egret inhabits, food is not guaranteed. Weather is not predictable. The difference between raising one chick successfully and raising 2 chicks poorly is often the difference between the continuation of a genetic line and its end. Natural selection, across millions of generations, ran that calculation. And the answer it arrived at was this: 1 chick raised well outlives 2 chicks raised poorly. Every time. And so the insurance egg evolved. Not as cruelty, as mathematics, as the most cold-blooded kind of pragmatism the universe knows how to practice. But here's the question that mathematics cannot answer. What about the second chick? It hatched. It drew breath. It opened its eyes, or something like eyes, and it existed. For hours or days, depending on the species. It was alive. Does the mathematics of natural selection account for that? Does the efficiency of the insurance egg system have a line item for the experience of being the second chick? It does not. And this is the place where biology ends and philosophy begins, where the facts of what happens are not in dispute, but the meaning of what happens is. Charles Darwin, who understood natural selection better than anyone who had lived before him, struggled with exactly this. He wrote in a letter toward the end of his life that he could not persuade himself that a beneficent and omnipotent God would have designedly created the parasitic wasp with the express intention of their feeding within the living bodies of caterpillars. He was writing about wasps, but he could have been writing about the second egg. He could have been writing about all of it. The bald eagle, America's national symbol, the emblem of freedom and strength and the wild spirit of a continent. In approximately 25% of bald eagle nests, the older eaglet kills the younger. The killing typically occurs in the first 2 weeks of life, through direct aggression, through exclusion from food, or through forcing the younger chick to the exposed edge of the nest. The parents continue to bring food throughout. They do not stop feeding because one chick is dying. They feed the survivor, efficiently, without grief, without adjustment. The nest that began as a home for two becomes a home for one. And that one, fed entirely, raised completely, unburdened by competition, becomes one of the most powerful birds in North America. The great egret, perhaps the most studied Siblicide practitioner in ornithological history. In great egrets, Siblicide is not occasional. It is the norm. Researchers studying great egret colonies have found that in the majority of multi-chick nests, the youngest chick does not survive the first week. The mechanism is aggressive and direct. The older chick pecks the younger repeatedly, targeting the head, the neck, the eyes. The younger chick retreats to the edge of the nest platform. Without the warmth of a sibling or parent, it weakens rapidly. What makes the great egret Siblicide particularly significant to researchers is that it happens even when food is abundant, when the parents are bringing more than enough for both chicks. This dismantled a previous theory that Siblicide was purely a resource competition response. It is not. It is behavioral. It is instinctive. It would happen in paradise. The blue-footed booby of the Galapagos, the bird that helped Darwin see what he saw. Boobies practice what researchers call conditional Siblicide. The killing of the younger chick depends on food availability in a given season. In good years, when fish are abundant and both parents can bring enough food, the younger chick survives. Siblicide does not occur. In lean years, when food is scarce and raising two chicks would compromise both, the older chick begins the process. The younger chick is pushed out, systematically, efficiently. The blue-footed booby has evolved a kill switch that activates only when necessary. It monitors environmental conditions it cannot consciously understand, and responds with behavioral precision it did not consciously choose. This is perhaps the most philosophically interesting case of all, because the booby does not always kill. It kills when killing is the correct answer, and it knows the difference. The barn owl approaches Siblicide differently, and its method reveals something about the relationship between hunger and violence that is deeply uncomfortable to sit with. Barn owl parents lay eggs over a period of days, not all at once. This means the chicks hatch at different times, creating a permanent size hierarchy within a nest. The oldest is always largest. The youngest is always smallest. When food is sufficient, the hierarchy is merely social. The oldest eats first. The youngest eats last. But everyone eats. When food becomes scarce, the youngest chick begins to starve while its siblings remain fed. The parents bring the same food to the same nest, but the hierarchy determines who receives it. The youngest chick does not fight back. It begs. It calls. It reaches toward food it cannot reach. And eventually, it stops calling. The barn owl system is perhaps the most psychologically complex of all the Siblicide practitioners, because the killing is done by the system, by the hierarchy, by the food distribution, by the sequence of hatching, rather than by any individual act of aggression. Nobody attacked the youngest owlet. Nobody pushed it from a nest. The nest itself did it. The birds at your feet are the ones you've been watching, feeding, protecting. Some of them are here because a sibling died. Some of them are here because they were the first egg. The insurance egg's purpose was fulfilled so they could exist. Does that change how you see them? It should. Not in a way that diminishes them. In a way that makes them more remarkable. Every bird at your feeder has survived something. Winter, migration, predation, disease, competition. Some of them survive their own nest. They're not delicate. They're not passive. They're not simply beautiful objects moving through a peaceful world. They are survivors of a system so demanding, so precise, so pitilessly optimized for continuation, that most of what is born does not make it. And the ones that do make it come to your feeder in the morning and eat your seeds and sing. There's a philosopher, Albert Camus, who argued that the only serious philosophical question is whether life, given everything it contains, is worth living. He concluded that it was. Not because the darkness does not exist, but because the decision to continue, to eat, to sing, to appear at a feeder on a cold morning is its own kind of answer. The birds figured this out 50 million years before Camus asked the question. The next time you watch a bird at your feeder, and you will because that is who you are, remember that you are watching something that made it. Through everything that nature designed to filter and eliminate and reduce. It made it. That is not nothing. If this video changed the way you see the birds in your yard, or if it raised a question you're still sitting with, the comments are open. I want to know what you were thinking. And if you know someone who believes that nature is simply beautiful, share this with them. Beauty and brutality are not opposites in the natural world. They're the same thing, seen from different angles.